welcome to another episode of Nonstop Nikhil, and even more than that, welcome to our fifth country, Côte d'Ivoire, or the Ivory Coast in English. Right now, I'm in the largest city in Ivory Coast called Abidjan. It's a port city, and it's home to a significant portion of the country's population. On top of that, the Ivory Coast is one of the fastest growing economies, not only in Africa, but in the world, and it's full of energy, and it's known as being a business hub for Western Africa, as well as the entire continent, more so than being a tourist destination. But regardless, we're going to take this opportunity to spend a couple of days based here in Abidjan to check out the entire country, spend some time in the various neighborhoods of Abidjan, and find out exactly what there is to do here. You know, if people say that a place is not a tourist destination, that means that I am excited to visit there. But for the moment, I'm in my Airbnb in the Cocody area of Abidjan. It's a diplomatic area full of embassies and the like. And just trying to figure out exactly how I need to plan my day today. I figure I'm going to take a look at the downtown area of Abidjan, known as the Plateau, just as it's known in Dakar, and just getting set up with some of the basics. Now, one of the things that I love here in Abidjan is that we have an app like Uber. We have a ride-hailing app called Yango, which I downloaded on my phone, set it up. I can see that there are vehicles around, and I know the fares are a lot cheaper than anything I'd be able to negotiate with the taxi drivers here. Sometimes it's just those small things which feel like home, that just feel like a warm embrace when you're traveling like this. Other than that, I think I'm ready to head out. Let's find somewhere to grab a quick breakfast. I think it's going to be a French-style breakfast with a patisserie with some coffee and a croissant or something like that. So let's find somewhere for breakfast and then head downtown, and we'll start our sightseeing for the day. First thing that you notice when you step out in Abidjan is that the humidity just slaps you in the face. So what I'm definitely finding right now, and the streets are really wet. I checked the forecast, and it's supposed to be raining a little today in the afternoon as well. So it's definitely a bit of a change from the typical Sahelian weather patterns we've had, where there's just been no rain since I've gotten to the continent. The patisserie I went to has pastries, but I asked if they have coffee, and they said, we're like, no, we don't have any coffee here. So I'm just wandering around trying to get a sense of the neighborhood I'm in. Again, it's like literally everything in one neighborhood. The neighborhoods are very self-contained as usual. I'm just looking for somewhere where I can sit down and get both something to eat and some coffee, because I also didn't have dinner last night when I arrived. All I ate was the meal at the lounge, and then the small little pastry and cake that was given on the Kenya Airways flight. So I am hungry, but I also need my caffeine. That's non-negotiable. I've been walking for maybe 5 to 10 minutes right now, and humidity has definitely entered the chat. I feel like myself just all sweaty and gross already, but hey, you're gonna be seeing the real me as I make my way through Abidjan today in this heat and humidity. I just finished my breakfast and I ordered my cab to downtown, to Place de la République downtown Abidjan, using the Yango app. It shows so many vehicles nearby, so in theory it shouldn't take that long. It's saying my vehicle will arrive in less than a minute. So I'm going to take you through how my experience goes using Yango today. And if it works well, it's going to be a great option for travelers, because it'll save you time expressing exactly where you need to go in a language you might not know, as well as a lot of money if you can't haggle down the price to what it really should be. Just got picked up, and I'll already say that it's a much better experience than taking a taxi. So far, I think it's probably the nicest vehicle I've been in all of my taxi rides since starting my trip, and nicest vehicle, air conditioned, and it's probably also the cheapest taxi ride that I've taken. I was just talking to the taxi driver Karim about his experience driving with Yango. He said he really likes it because it all depends on how much he wants to work, and he gets paid depending on how much he works. Which, I mean, it's the Uber concept. And then for passengers, I mean, there's nothing better than this. You have like one of the nicest cars I've been in since arriving in the larger cities. I can only compare really with Dakar. And the price, I mean, I'm paying less than 2,000 sefa for this ride. And I know if I were in Dakar and were relying on the yellow cabs, the drivers would have easily milked me for about 5,000 sefa for the same ride. So no complaints from my end either. The Chinese are definitely building their sphere of influence here in Africa. You see this huge bridge construction going on behind me to link the different parts of Abidjan. And all you see are Chinese workers. They're on the construction sites. Everything's written in Chinese, and they're really building their sphere of influence, and it's going under the radar for a lot of people in the West. You've got Chinese building their sphere of influence, and then in some areas you see the Turkish sphere of influence very, very clearly. And sometimes they overlap, but it's something that a lot of Americans don't realize if they don't leave the country very much. Hello everyone, and welcome to downtown Abidjan. And what better place to start my tour of downtown Abidjan than here right in front of the Air Côte d'Ivoire building, which also serves as the office of the Ministry of Tourism. As you can see behind me, we've got the National Office of Tourism. So from here I'm going to go on a walking tour through downtown Abidjan. We'll see what we can find. I know I've marked a couple spots, but I'm not going to stick by that 100%. We'll just see what we can find. And yeah, let's go. Oh, it's only just about 10:30 in the morning right now, but it feels like I'm walking in a sauna. You're just going to see me sweat all day. But I can't help but notice how being in a city with so much economic growth, it not only manifests itself in all the construction projects going on around the city, including a joint project with the Moroccans financed by Mohammed VI himself, the King of Morocco, to build this sort of like luxury harbor right along the water, which connects the neighborhoods of Treichville and downtown Abidjan. It's really incredible what they're trying to build. And that's going on the background of the Chinese project to build that huge bridge between the same two neighborhoods. So the super high humidity quickly turned to actual rain, and I was passing by a supermarket. So I figured I would step in, and wow, I was just greeted by a rush of really, really intense air conditioning. Imagine like when you're in Florida and it's super humid outside and you step into like blasting air conditioning, and it was so refreshing. I just walked through the store. I felt like I could have been at Meijer back in Michigan, or a Target, or just like, I don't know, just a Whole Foods, just like something I haven't felt in the longest time. It's just a return, a reverse culture shock, if that's a thing, like when you just instantly are transported back home to like what feels comfortable to you. So I just roamed the aisles a little bit. You can get everything you want. I just ended up picking a bottle of water and this like caffeinated, this like coffee sparkling drink. But yeah, there are people getting some hot food at the bar here. You can even buy a little capsule of an espresso and make your own espresso drink. They're serving crepes over here. I don't know, it just feels very much like home. But back to what I was saying earlier, when you're somewhere with just a burgeoning economic scene, it really manifests itself in just how the people act. People look like they're on the way to be going somewhere. They have something to do. They don't have the time or trouble to hassle you. No one's looking at you. No one really cares what you have in your hands. It just feels like you're in any big city at home, where people have things to do. You are not what's on top of mind for them. I completely have just surrendered to the rain at this point. It's not even worth trying to stay dry. But As you leave Place de la République downtown, you pass through the commercial heart of Abidjan. Then you pass through areas containing many of the prominent government buildings in Abidjan, including the National Assembly and the Justice Palace, which is probably the equivalent of the Supreme Court, before you reach the top of the plateau and you have one of the most striking landmarks in Abidjan, which is the Cathedral of St. Paul. It's named the Cathedral of St. Paul because it was Pope John Paul II who consecrated this cathedral in the early 1980s. The extremely large cross present at this cathedral is a landmark all around Abidjan and a reminder for just how many Christians there are in this country. About 40% of the population of the Ivory Coast is Christian, and then another 40% is Muslim, with the remaining 20 or so percent following traditional indigenous beliefs or no beliefs at all. In addition to its architectural features, this cathedral is the second largest cathedral in Africa and one of the largest cathedrals in the world. In addition to serving as a place of worship and an architectural landmark for the city of Abidjan, St. Paul's Cathedral also played a role during the 2010-2011 political crisis which engulfed Abidjan. During this period, almost 2,000 refugees took shelter in the cathedral amid political violence when the longtime president decided that he had actually won the 2010 elections, one of the first elections in a while in the Ivory Coast, whereas many foreign observers and foreign organizations declared that it was the opposition which had won. This led to political conflict, political crisis, a lot of violence, especially the besieging of the largest city here in Abidjan, and many people were forced to take shelter in this place of worship. Just leaving the Museum of Ivory Coast Civilizations, wasn't allowed to film in there. But the museum gives you a good overview of the different peoples, ethnicities, and how they developed from before colonialization, during colonialization, and then into the creation of the modern state of Ivory Coast. One thing I would like to note here, but wasn't mentioned in the display, is actually the name Ivory Coast, or La Côte d'Ivoire. The government here really likes to push that you name them in French, La Côte d'Ivoire. As we discussed when we were in Gorée Island, there were various European settlements along the West African Atlantic coast, and European powers would name a particular segment of the West African coast based on what resources were present there. So they would have the Gold Coast, they would have the Slave Coast, the Ivory Coast. So that name, which applied to the area of Ivory Coast as well as some of the neighboring countries, sort of stuck. And so that's how we have Ivory Coast today. Because I know it's a bit of a weird name for a country. That's how we have La Côte d'Ivoire, or Ivory Coast in English. The colonial borders, which created today's Côte d'Ivoire, have managed to create an extremely diverse country in which ethnic groups speaking about over 70 languages live together in this territory. That means that you often need to find a language that becomes a common language for daily communication. And my sense is that that remains to be French. Unlike when I was in Senegal, where most people would be speaking Wolof together and only really use French when they need to speak with people who weren't from Senegal, here I noticed that most casual conversations between people here in Côte d'Ivoire, here in Abidjan, tend to take place in French, perhaps as a way to find some sort of common ground for communication between all the different ethnic groups that probably reside in such a big city. However, just take everything I'm saying with a grain of salt. It's just my first impressions from day one here in Côte d'Ivoire. I've only been in some of the nicer areas of Abidjan. I'm sure everything I say will go out the window the moment I leave the more upscale neighborhoods of Abidjan and then once you even leave the city, it's a completely different story. That's typically what I found in all my travels the past few weeks. You leave the capital city or the largest cities, and it's a completely different story. Right now, it's just lunchtime, and I'm walking aimlessly, trying to find a restaurant where I can pop in and get something to eat. The Restaurant de la Paix, Africain, Européen. Okay, we'll give it a try. I really feel bad for the business workers down here who are all wearing suits. I have no idea how they've adapted to not literally melting in this weather, because I'm melting. I'm quite frankly just melting here. It's the same feeling that you get walking around one of the hottest, most humid days in Washington, D.C., and you see people wearing suits, and you just feel pity for them. That's pretty much my state right now. I do love how chic everyone is here, how everyone walks with a purpose, has a reason to be somewhere or go somewhere. It's just so different from after you've spent like a week in Casamance in southern Senegal and then in Gambia. It's just like people had no reason to ever be anywhere. No one was ever felt in a rush, and so they'd always have time to like ask you stupid questions or just figure out what you're doing with your life. So everything would be have to be like a 5-minute interaction, like introducing yourself, saying hi to every single person walking down the street, and that people just here don't have time for that, and I love it. The Grand Mosque of Plateau, this neighborhood of Abidjan, was one of the sites I wanted to make a stop at, but I think I passed by there right during Friday communal prayers. So there were groups of worshippers gathered in the mosque, as well as pouring out onto the sidewalks and into the courtyards of the mosque. Didn't want to disturb that too much, but as you can hear behind me, you can hear the call to prayer, and before that you could also hear the khutbah or sermon going on. That's actually what turned me on to the fact that I was actually in the neighborhood of the mosque, so might as well make a stop there. But as you can see, it's not a very old mosque, so I don't think we're missing out on anything architecturally or historically significant. Okay, so after getting back to Cocody from downtown, I just figured I'd walk around, not really looking for anything in particular, but it's always in the back of my mind to get a haircut because it's getting hot and it's been over a month now since I've gotten my haircut. But I was hoping I would find a Lebanese place because Lebanese are known to be great hairstylists, and also our hair is more similar, so it would be more familiar for them. But I couldn't find any Lebanese spot, and I quite frankly haven't seen many Lebanese in this area. Maybe they're all concentrated in another area of Abidjan, just like they were concentrated in the area of Dakar, where I was coincidentally staying during my stay there. But I just figured I would walk into a random place. I saw it was open, and it was advertising either having African cuts or European cuts. So I don't really know what I got, but I have my haircut done now. It's not too bad. But I was like leaving the haircut spot and I came across this little eatery. I don't really know if it's like one eatery or like many eateries combined, but there are a lot of people here. They all have bottles of local domestic beer, and looks like they're eating like good fish and chicken dishes. So I figured, yeah, why not spend some time here instead of going back to my Airbnb? So here I am. I ordered an Ivory Black, which is a national beer, and I also just asked for like something small to eat, just chicken and some fries, and just do some people watching, especially if it's a Friday evening, people are getting out of work. So I had my questions answered. I just asked somebody who works here what the name of the restaurant is, and he's like, what do you mean, name of the restaurant? And he's telling me that this is called an allocodrome. It's called an allocodrome. And what that means is that it's a place where you can order your food, and there are people, I think from the place right in front of me, it says Allocodrome de Cocody right there, where they're cooking the food like in a barbecue kind of style, and they bring the food to us who are sitting out here outside, and then there are other people behind us who are responsible for the drinks. So we're ordering the drinks from them, they bring the drinks over,
and then another woman came over to take my order for food, and then I'm ordering the food from them. But we get to all sit down and enjoy everything together, and everyone sits out here and gets to enjoy whatever they order. So I mean, it's a good idea. Everyone gets specialized in what they're good at. That means that the food's probably going to be good, and then obviously there's a wide range of beers, so it's not a bad thing.
I made the 3-block walk away from where we were, back to my Airbnb, and I'm gonna go take a shower because I've been gross and sweaty all day. It's evening time, it's just past 6 p.m., the sun has gone down, and I'm thinking about heading out for Friday evening to an area known as Blockhaus. Blockhaus is just a couple blocks walk from where I am right now in Cocody. And what's special about Blockhaus is that it's been trying so difficultly over the past 50 years to maintain its identity as a village in Côte d'Ivoire. Regardless of all the urbanization, all of the expansion of the city, all of the new construction and high-rises going up and globalization of Abidjan, it's been trying to maintain its identity as an agricultural village bordering the lagoon here in Abidjan.
So it's real. I'm in Blockhaus right now. It's about a 15-minute walk from where I'm staying. You walk through the diplomatic area, you pass by all the international organizations, a couple embassies, and then it suddenly just changes to secondhand shoe salesmen on the street and just very small town West African sort of businesses. People selling secondhand clothing, small food stalls, people grilling meats on the street, everything that you would typically find in this region of the world. Where I found this street marked off as a sort of food street of Blockhaus area, so I figured I would show you exactly what goes into the food street here, see what this espace gastronomique de Blockhaus really will entail. There's people grilling pretty much everything out on the street, from lobsters to chicken, fish, just meats marinated and ready to be ordered, and even things that I just completely do not recognize. Different parts of like meat party. Everything's here. Fish, more fish. So like there's just like chicken sitting out to be marinated and then grilled upon order. Not bad. I'm gonna end another vlog. It's the first vlog in the Côte d'Ivoire series of Non-Stop Nikhil. Our first day here in Abidjan. Right in front of me you see the Sofitel Hotel and the large banks of downtown Abidjan overlooking the rest of the city. Here we've got the lagoon which separates where we are right now in Cocody and Blockhaus from other parts of the city. And this is just how we dine in Côte d'Ivoire apparently. You choose a place to sit down, one party brings you something to drink, another party will take your order for food, and then there are vendors which try to sell you small things here and there, and then you're just with your friends and have a good time. Everyone's playing their different music, and it's just a very festive vibe for a Friday night. With that, I'm going to end my vlog for today. Take care everyone, have a good night.